Welcome in 07 citizens, Black here from Castle Black Gaming, and this is a review for the Anvil Carrack. My reviews are meant to be packed with tons of info, given it my normal, no time wasting format. Now if you like what I do and feel like I deserve it, then please like, subscribe, and comment to tell me which ship review you would like me to tackle next, or to just talk about why you love this ship so much. So with the intro out of the way, let's get to the review. So first here on the screen are the stats for the ship. The Carrack is a large-sized exploration vessel that for many offers up daily use and in grand fashion. The ship dimensions are 126.5 meters in length, 76.5 meters across its beam and width, and 30 meters in height. There are 4 decks, with the uppermost deck only covering a small portion of the ship, as it's mainly just a lone compartment, which I'll touch on later. The ship seats a crew of 4 to 6, with living quarters to accommodate that many as well. The cargo is 456 SCU of storage by default, utilizing storage modules that are the only current modules available for this ship. The max combat speed is 208 meters per second, with out of combat speed being 1,236 meters per second. The ship claim time from the ASOP terminal is 45 minutes, which is considerable, but you should not be losing the ship often and needing to reclaim it as much. Its other ship components are 2 size 3 shields, 2 size 3 coolers, 1 size 3 power plant, and 1 size 3 quantum drive. The Carrack has 22 thrusters, 4 of which are VTOLs for thrust and maneuverability, with 2 size 3 hydrogen fuel tanks and 2 size 3 quantum fuel tanks. Now this is a new section I'm adding going forward because I've seen a constant discussion happen around ships, which is a major factor for use, that being how long it takes a player to enter or exit a ship from its access points. This is just normal traversal without taking any shortcuts like making jumps over rails or falling down to other levels. The Carrack, even though it is a rather large ship, only has a single gravity access point. Now what that means is that if you're not within gravity, you can use docking collars to exit the ship, so those do not really count for this purpose. For the Carrack, the forward-facing ramp is the only way in or out. The time it takes from pushing the button, waiting for the ramp to lower and extend, then for you to move up the ramp, then push the button to close it behind you, then go through a door to the elevator, then to take the elevator up to the Habitation Deck and exit the Habitation Deck, and then to make your way through another door and onto the bridge, and finally into your seats is right at the 60-second mark. Of course, the faster you can get from the outside your ship and into the pilot seat is a real concern for many people, and I think this is more of a concern for a solo ship than it is a group ship, since a pilot can just remain stationary at their position in their seat while others take care of issues. So once everyone is on board, the pilot can be at the ready to take off. The Carrack's living space, as well as its just overall interior, is one of the ship's largest selling points, and so let's just do a deck by deck tour to show off all of the interior and what the ship has to offer. Now starting with the on-ramp, which is located at the front of the ship, this is the main entry point for citizens who are entering the ship. The ramp is large, like really large, and long as it extends toward you. You begin to realize just how much bigger this ship is compared to other ships you've been on before. Now once up the ramp, you enter into the garage. Now don't confuse this with the cargo area. Those are separate areas. This is the garage for parking and transporting vehicles, most notably the RSI Ursa rover, but the Carrack can fit a few varieties of ground vehicles inside, just not the Atlas platform vehicles like the new Centurion, as you see me trying to do here. One cool thing about the garage is this raising stop. You can raise or lower with the press of a button, making for a nice way to know when to stop your vehicles while driving them inside. Moving on from the garage, there is a small room with the main elevator you will use to traverse the ship's 3 main decks, and an entry for the docking collar opposite the elevator. Moving forward through this deck, we enter the belly of the ship, which consists of 3 modules that at some point will be swappable for other gameplay modules, but which for now come standard as cargo holds. These cargo holds are interconnected with a catwalk that runs the length of the cargo rooms, giving you an overhead view of your precious valuables, and also having small lifts in each room, allowing you to go down to the cargo floor if you need to. Now, how cargo will work in the Carrack is anybody's guess once the cargo refactor goes live, but it will be interesting to see how it plays out once the modules are fully integrated into the game, but no word on when that will be. Moving on from the cargo hold though, we have another compartment with an elevator straight ahead that grants access to the 4th deck, which is the ship's Cartography Deck, which we will get to later in the video. Also on this floor next to the elevators are suit storage compartments, something for which you will see in another area of the ship later on, as well as weapon lockers on either side of the doorway. Going around the sides of the elevator, you reach the very rear of the ship where the aft turret seat is located, and that's going to do it for the SubDeck level. Now let's move on to the Habitation deck on the 2nd level. So from the aft elevator, you come out to a wall and hallway that go on either side of the large medical bay compartment. Now as you walk around, you start to get a real sense for how big the ship is, and you also get to nerd out a little if you were ever a fan of Star Trek corridors, which is where you would usually get more of your off the record or permission to speak free moments from the show. Anyway, when you come around to see the medbay doors, you know right away that this is a medbay, and the aesthetic fits in nicely from what we've grown to expect from medical facilities in Star Citizen, at least on the more reputable areas of the Stanton system. Now inside you have the large CAT scan looking bed, which is where you can treat up to tier 2 wounds. Not quite as good as the tier 1 beds that would be on the Apollo and Endeavor later on, but better than the tier 3 beds on the Cutlass Red currently. You can also set this bed as a respawn point, making it the only ship in the verse at the moment to offer that, which is a plus for those doing Cave or Derelict or other PvE or PvP missions where death is likely. Now moving on through the rest of the medbay, we have a couple of beds that you can lie down in, and then a storage room on the left side of the room, which seems stocked with all you might need in the medical field, even if it only serves as an aesthetic look for now. And there's also a physician's office or observing room, which is equipped with stools, tables, and medical equipment, again purely for aesthetics with no purpose other than to further prove that this is a medical bay. Moving on from the medbay, we have the entrance-exit points for the main elevator from the garage seen earlier, and then next to the elevator are the crew's quarters. Inside of here you will find a nice area for the crew to relax with some sort of billiards table in the center of the room. A toilet entrance is in the room on the side of the room where you enter and exit from a short flight of stairs. Inside of the toilet area, it looks like a typical crew bathroom with a sink and shelves and 2 toilet stalls. This bathroom is quite spacious. Now moving back into the billiards room, there is another door on that far wall, which is where we can find the crew's bunks. There are 2 sets of bunk beds in the center of the room that are very nicely styled. You can get into the top bunk by holding F and selecting the bed, and you can choose to sit or lie down. There is a 5th bed at the rear of the room, which is where I would assume someone of authority just under the captain, like a first officer, would sleep, giving them a little more space to themselves, or as much as you can when in a room with 4 other adults. At the far end of this room is where the showers are located in an equally sized bathroom, just like where the toilets were. You get 2 shower stalls, not functioning at the moment, and more sinks, mirrors, and shelving for towels and bath things. Alright, so now leaving the crew quarters, we move across the hallway to the mess hall, which should give you some alien vibes from that first movie on board the Nostromo, where a certain alien burst its way from Kane's chest. Now, while the table is rectangular and not round like the one in the movie, the overall style and coloring and feel just gives you those vibes, whether intentional or not. But considering that Star Citizen is kind of a love letter to many sci-fi genres and IPs, I think it's highly likely. Anyway, this mess hall is perfect, from the multiple cooking machines to accommodate the multi-crew to the windows, both looking outward and within the ship, giving it the air of an area that is meant to be welcoming for other crew members. I do wish the fridge doors worked and that they were stocked with items like we are beginning to see on some of the other ships now, but the Carrack has been around for a while now, which was before working fridges were a thing, I believe. The captain's quarters, which reside next to the mess hall, are pretty much what you would expect, but for those Carrack owners who are wanting to feel like they have their own special place on board their ship, it is nicely decorated and comes with plenty of space to hold briefings or to scold your fellow player for failing to prevent all that damage you received on your last PvP engagement. The captain's quarters has its own bathroom because, of course, captains can't share with the plebs. The bed is pretty muted, which to me suggests setting the tone for a captain that thinks of comfort as something for planet dwellers and not someone who runs one of the finest exploration ships in the fleet. Alright, so let's move on to the bridge. Now, the Carrack bridge is very interesting, first off having 2 decks with its own elevator between the upper and lower bridge. There are also panels that open to do things, I'm not quite sure what yet, with on either side that open up to a valve that might be something useful with the upcoming ship engineering gameplay, and another labeled avionics that sits in the middle, which again is something that doesn't do anything at the moment. There are also 8 servers on this ship, meaning data use, whether that be for calculating jumps or possibly some other feature gameplay with servers. They're here and something to make this ship further useful. The main cockpit area where most will sit to control the ship consists of 3 chairs for a pilot and then 2 co-pilots. Moving up to the upper deck of the bridge, we find 2 seats, one for doing support roles, and the other is a remote turret that controls the 2 size forward turrets on the top middle of the ship. There is also a large spherical hollow map located in the center of the room, presumably for the captain and other crew to plot and plan locations and destinations. There is also a standing station at the very front of the upper bridge where a crew member can take the helm and navigate the ship, although whenever I did this I was unable to use the quantum drive from this position, so perhaps it's just for piloting and not jumping to coordinates, or maybe the ship I was on was bugged when I attempted it. Regardless, you get a great view up here. Now, leaving the upper bridge, we come upon 6 escape pods lining the halls on either side, and then a door leading to the next compartment of the ship. And this compartment, first up on the right, is a repair room, presumably where an engineer might take parts to repair with tools on the countertop and some sort of automated repair module that was not active sitting in the corner. Leaving the repair room, we have a drone room across the hall where inside you will find 2 manned stations where crew members can take control of drones once that gameplay feature is in. It looks like there's a drone hab butted up against the wall, and I would assume the drones are stationed in there and will then exit the ship from these little compartments and doors that seem to be on the wall here. Leaving the drone room, there is a main elevator next to that room, and then we have a large control panel for the hangar, which is just on the other side of the glass there. You can open the hangar doors from this control panel as seen here. Now, leaving the hangar area, you then end up in the back half of the third deck of the ship, where there is another elevator which can take you down to the back half of the ship on the SubDeck at the end of the modular cargo holds. On either side of this room are entrances for the side turrets where crew members can get inside and protect the ship on both sides on the wings. The last section of the third deck is the engineering section. Inside you will find a small room overlooking the quantum drive that takes up the bulk of the space here. Inside the compartment where the quantum drives are, you can go down the hallway where you will see a ladder going down and control panels on both of the quantum drives, neither of which do anything yet, but I'm sure will at some point to fine tune or make repairs to the drives. There are large ducts and hoses connected to the drives running along the top of the corridors, which makes for a nice look. Now, taking the ladder down, you find the subsection of engineering where there are panels that open up like this power plant, where if you were to swap out that part, it will then show changed here as well, as you can see here from me having went from the stock power plant on the left and now the new improved power plant on the right. There are also shield generators in the corridor as well as radar. If the components are in the game now, like the shields, then those components are inside of the panels, and if they are not, such as the life support or radar, then they're empty. There's also 2 doors on either side of the engineering elevator that take you to where the fuel tanks are located. Alright, now taking the larger elevator up to the cartography deck, which is a 4th deck, but only not even half a deck, we see that the cartography room is directly across the elevator, and to the sides are doors that lead you to airlocks that allow you to go out onto the hull of the ship, over the hangar, or into space with your EV suit. Going back into the final room, which is the cartography room, we see a hollow representation of the Stanton system, and that's going to do it for the ship tour. The Carrack currently has 2 paints available on the website to purchase. The first is called Polar Paint, which is honestly not very noticeable as a difference in paint schemes to me from the original colors, so this is one I would not personally buy. And the other is the blue and black paint job known as the Stormbringer, which is one we've seen on other ships and one that looks pretty nice, but I'm still not quite sold on this one either for my own personal taste and believe more paint jobs for this ship need to be implemented. I would honestly like to see maybe a red and gold scheme, but that's just wishful thinking on my part. The Anvil Carrack is a multi-crew explorer ship that is supposed to be a pathfinder ship that will help citizens traverse the stars and chart new places to go. Unfortunately, with the game only having one system thus far, there really isn't much to explore or pathfind with the ship as of now, but that has not stopped citizens from enjoying and utilizing this multi-purpose ship that, combined with its features both currently in-game and not, the ship can be more than just an expeditionary ship. Now, while some of the chart mapping features are MIA and also not needed right now, the medical bay is a huge reason citizens use the ship, and rightly so, as it's currently the only ship that offers up a tier 2 bed on the go and a bed to respawn in as well, which comes in handy, especially for group activities, whether that be racing with others or just doing missions where death is more likely than not. Another great use of the vehicle is its garage that can hold most land vehicles, but sadly not the Atlas platform ships like the new Centurion or the Tonk. Still though, with a package including both the RSI Ursa rover and the Pisces class scout ship that can fly into an open top hangar, players can easily land somewhere and then utilize smaller craft to take care of functions from mining to racing to just exploring or doing bunkers. Another huge aspect of the Carrack is its modular system, which as of this video is limited to the default cargo storage that's in the belly of the ship. These modules will at some point be something that can be detached and dropped off, and I'm assuming, while I'm not sure how this will fit, if it's supposed to fit into the grand scheme of the physicalized cargo refactor that is coming sometime in the next few months after this video goes live. As of right now, the cargo modules do not have bay doors that open or close. Might they receive elevators like the Caterpillar so desperately needs in order to make loading or unloading cargo a thing? Or will, like I said, they just be dropped off with empty cargo modules being picked up and swapped? There's still so much about physicalized cargo that we don't know yet, so those questions will need answering. Another role the ship will play will be that of multi-crew gameplay, especially on board the ship. There is a full engineering suite on the third deck with a repair room, presumably to repair parts in. There are many panels that open and you can see components that are currently in game and room for those we know that are coming soon, such as life support. So if you're wanting a ship that can fly with your buddies where you'll need to physically go to parts to check on their wear and tear and replace them if necessary during a battle, then this ship will offer that up and looks to be one of the more fleshed out ones that will do this. The Carrack is one of the most missing featured ships in the verse, and yet it still has a lot of features in-game that make it valuable for some now. The things that are currently missing are, of course, the engineering gameplay loops. Also, the cartography room is a giant waste of space until that feature comes online, which will be years down the road at least until we have more than a system or two in the game. The drone system is another system that is greatly missing, and thus an entire section of the ship is just sitting there. There are panels on the ship that have things like avionics on the upper bridge or the valve cutoff panels on the main bridge that do nothing except open right now. There are bathrooms with toilets and showers that do nothing as of this video, as well as a kitchen that is not useful as you cannot cook or even store food or drinks in these compartments yet. The escape pods are another feature that do nothing right now, and other than sitting and some basic weapon functions, the extra co-pilot seats and additional seats up in the upper deck of the bridge are just mostly for transporting crew members and not fully functioning. More modules are also missing and haven't really been discussed recently, and even the cargo modules that are there are about to really be missing features when physicalized cargo goes live. So yes, there's quite a bit missing from this ship. The size of the Carrack means that the ship components are not cheap, and while the laser repeaters that come stock with the ship are what you need and not something you'll need to upgrade, weapons are never the most expensive parts anyway, so those do not really impact the high cost you will be spending. To upgrade the engine, shields, and power plant, you are looking at a little over 500,000 credits, so that is something to consider when getting this ship, and with so many wipes happening recently and upcoming, this can be an expensive early purchase you will need if this is a daily driver for you. Alright, so the first part of this has been mostly facts. Now we come to the part where it's more subjective, and although I try not to really push my opinion too much on others, I will give my take coming from a reasonable place, trying to avoid hyping things for the sake of hype. So how does the Anvil Carrack look overall? For me, the outside is just sort of plain. It does not really strike me as something that looks cool or stylized, but simply functional, which is okay. I'm not knocking the ship overall for just looking like an enlarged space shuttle, because I know this ship is not meant to be a head turner, but more a practical ship that can do very many things. The interior is really clean looking, and I would say better than average in terms of looking, but again, just more functional. I really do like the crew quarters, mess hall, and med bay, as these areas stand out as places that I would enjoy being in if I were on the ship for months at a time. You get the sense of seeing these designs from other sci-fi movies or shows, and they are inviting but yet keep you on your toes because of the seriousness of what the ship represents, which is having a purpose and exploring. There's nothing I would really change except maybe the captain's quarters or some of the oversized bathroom spaces in favor of more storage areas, but those are minor knocks for me. I do wonder what additional modules would bring to the ship, so whenever that day comes, I do look forward to those. Alright, so is the ship fun? With this ship being an explorer type ship with some daily driver implications, it's not meant to be fun. It is definitely cool, and seeing these roll up on a group event is always awe-inspiring. For my own use in testing, I found the ship to respond as you would imagine a large ship would in Atmo and in space. It's a bit slow and hulking, and you really need to watch your momentum when landing, but again, while not fun, fully expected in a ship of this class and size. Anvil has some decent thrusters on their ships, and are not as drifty as some like the Mist or draggy like the Drake, but are in a pretty good spot. I did enjoy piloting a ship of this size, even if I could not quite land centered on landing pads on the outpost. It was still fun to try, and I look forward to getting better at landing it, and yeah, I had fun using it. Alright, so the big elephant in the room here is the real money price, because it's a sticker shock to most. This ship really jumps in cost from something like the RSI Constellation line, but then again, this ship is a lot bigger and offers up more features than the Constellation line, which is one of the few ships I can remotely compare it to. This ship's real money price of around $600 currently can be a deal breaker in that department for most, and I don't blame them. That is a hefty sum and reserved for only the more diehard supporters out there. Is it worth that price? If money's not an issue for you though. I think that will depend on how much you play with others, especially if you're playing with 4 or more friends all the time. For solo players, I don't think it's a good buy. Now, while you can solo the ship, you're not going to be able to do everything there is to keep yourself alive if you come under attack, so that could be an issue for you. With the Constellation ships, at least you as a pilot can still defend yourself very reliably, but not so with the Carrack. Now, what about the in-game price? I mean, if you're a go-getter and are making millions like there's no tomorrow and can afford the 26 million credits the ship costs and feel like it will suit you, whether that be for the medical bay or just the bragging rights, then by all means shoot for it. But for my personal solo use, I did not find it worthwhile to own for either reason. While the medical respawn point is nice, I just did not find myself taking it out to derelicts or outposts or even bunker missions due to how long the landing can take, finding a good spot, or just the general use of it. As with all things related to money, your mileage may vary and be dependent on the multiple factors I listed here, but I think for the average solo player, it's not worth the money in either format, and I think that when the Apollo ships come into the game, we might see less people owning the Carrack, but we'll see how this prediction ages later. Alright, this is a new section that I wanted to include going forward, and this is ways I would like to see this ship either changed or what sort of variants they could make of this ship. I think modules will help fill this role more, so I will mostly stick to those ideas, and I hope this section of the review will also invite more comments from you, the player, because I'd like to know your thoughts and ideas on things that can make this ship even better. Now for me, I think a combat-focused version would be nice, as is hinted at the brief history we get for the ship. Missiles or more hard points on the ship would be nice, or maybe even some bomber capabilities with those modules being swapped out for bomber bays. I think being a drop ship with those modules having their own ramps going down would also be cool to quickly unload various land assault vehicles quickly. I would also like a more science-based version with those modules having grow labs or something inside. Alright, so that's going to do it for this ship review of the Anvil Carrack. I know this was a longer review than normal, but the tour alone took so much more time because of how vast the ship is. I know from my pricing section that it might sound like I think the ship is not worth buying, and that could not be further from the truth. I think for me as a solo player, being realistic, I would not get the full use out of it. Now, if my wife and daughter and her boyfriend started playing, I would snatch this sucker up with the quickness because I know for the four of us, it would be something we would use every time we played for the most part. And if I ever get really into org play, I would get one if our org needed one. But as for now, I will stick with my Constellation and hope for the Apollo to come along next year as is scheduled. The Carrack is an impressive ship, and doing this review made me appreciate more that I had not realized taking the time to check out before, such as the engineering section, which once again, when that part of the game goes live, will make this ship really shine. Anyway, remember to be kind to your fellow gamer, don't get caught with your pants down because only bad things ever come from that, and stay positive citizens.